This verse, the previous two, and the next one are concerned with the essence of Tathagatahood. There's something very fundamental about this expression, isn't there? The essence of Tathagatahood. The Tathagatahood is the existential status of the Buddha. And we're told in the previous verse that there's nothing that you can do to attain this essence, to realize this essence, the essence of Tathagatahood, because it's devoid of doings. And the next verse, 420, spells this out. To be pure by means of the psychic faculties and the self-mastery, to be embellished with the Samadhis and the powers, to be provided with varieties of the will body, these belong to the pure essence of Tathagatahood. So as I mentioned in the previous video, we're in the habit of doing. Our minds rarely stop, and we're caught up in this. Our awareness is caught up in this. And this verse 420 spells out how we avoid this. And it's by means of the psychic faculties. And again, along with this mention of powers in the same verse, we've got this intriguing possibility once again of the siddhis, the supernormal powers. And I've addressed this issue on various occasions in the past. Anybody that's interested in developing these supernormal powers really have to have a look at their own motivation. It's usually indicative of a feeling of impotence. Why should you want power? Because you don't feel powerful. You might rationalize it some other way, but there really isn't any other reason. And before you even begin to look into such possibilities, you need to ask yourself about your own psychic faculties. To what extent are you the slave to your habits, to your compulsions, to your moods, to your fetishes, to your addictions? If the answer is that you're a slave to them to any extent, even the slightest extent, then how can you even begin to talk about cultivating supernormal powers when you haven't even got authority over your own psyche? So this is what the self-mastery is about. To be pure by means of the psychic faculties and the self-mastery. The psychic faculties are awareness of your limitations, awareness of your problems, awareness of your addictions, awareness of your habits, of your moods, of your fetishes, of your compulsions. Now that might not sound very much, but most people who are caught up in such things, which is probably most of us to a greater or lesser degree, we're usually in a state of denial about them. We don't acknowledge them. We don't acknowledge our enthrallment, our enslavement. I was talking to a colleague recently whose mother's an alcoholic and is now suffering depression, suicidal depression, but she doesn't seem to think she's got a drinking problem, which you would think is the first thing that has to be tackled, as it's probably a contributory factor to her depression. So if somebody can't even acknowledge that they've got a problem with alcohol, how do you proceed? So this is what means of the psychic faculties means. We need to be brutally honest with ourselves, not in a judgmental fashion. There's no point in being judgmental about it. But we have to look at these behaviours which we somehow rationalise. And this is where the traditional ethical practices come into play. Because we might not be capable of forming an objective assessment of our limitations. But then you just need to look at simple moral criteria, whether it's the 10 Commandments or whether it's the Buddhist precepts, or even simply inconsistency in your own behaviour. Perhaps you're supposed to be in a relationship, and yet you might find all sorts of reasons to behave in violation of that relationship, in violation of a commitment that you've made. Or perhaps you're supposed to be on a diet or giving up smoking, and yet you might be giving yourself all sorts of little breaks from that diet or from that discipline. So you look at consistency with your own behaviour, because we really need to be aware of our own limitations here. And in fact, if we're not enlightened right now, then there's some limitation in operation. We don't need to go looking for the answer in books or wherever. We need to look at our own mood tone, where we're at right now. Because there's something in operation which is limiting us. So we need to be brutally objective with respect to our own psyche. And as I said, this doesn't mean being judgmental or dismissive of yourself in any way whatsoever, because that's just another part of your psyche messing around. No, you see the limitation in yourself and you become aware of it. And then you don't go along with it. You don't go along with the limitation. So this is self-mastery. Self-mastery. And when you don't go along with a limitation, you've got a new degree of freedom. And this is what's meant here by Samadhi and the powers. You've realized that this thing works. And you keep doing this. And in this way, you become empowered. Not simply as an enlightenment practitioner, but your sense of being becomes empowered. You're becoming more complete, less fragmented, less dissipated, less dissolute. So these are the powers. It's an essential empowerment. And to be provided with varieties of the will body The will body is the will to enlightenment. How strong is that will in you? There are as many will bodies as there are moments in the day, because every moment brings a new challenge. It's the challenge of being forgetful, or of remembering to go beyond our limitations. So this is non-doing, because our limitations are our active denials. We're not honestly looking. We are going along with active denial of our own limitations. And when we don't do this, when we don't go along with it, when we come face to face with our own limitations, our own denial, well then, this is self-mastery. And it's liberating. This liberation is Samadhi, and it's empowering. And then the next moment comes along, and our body, our whole psychophysical mechanism, is it wanting to turn to enlightenment, or is it wanting to turn to active forgetfulness? This is our work. This is all part of the pure essence of Tathagatahood.